Hey everyone, how's it going? Matthew Bailey here, and welcome back to a top things video. And today, I'm going to be doing my picks for the top 5 worst movies of 2016. Now, I know I did my best movies of 2016 like over a week ago, so I'm sorry it took me so long to do this one, but I'm doing it now. So, like I said, if there's a movie on this list that you don't like, then don't worry. It's I mean everyone has their own opinion, but like I said, leave your list of the worst movies in the comment section down below. But without further ado, let's get into my picks for my top 5 worst movies of 2016. Number 5. So, for number 5, honestly, I thought this was okay, but there were some aspects of the movie that didn't really make sense, and also the fact that there was originally intentionally going to be a part 2 to this movie, meaning it wasn't the entire movie, but the whole movie wasn't based on the entire book, so. But that is the Divergent series Allegiant. Yeah, so this movie, honestly, I didn't get the purpose of this movie because, the second one was sort of okay. It kind of continued what happened in the first Divergent movie, which was okay to me. I liked that movie. But Allegiant, honestly, what happened after the events of Insurgent in this movie didn't make sense to me. It makes me feel like what Janine said at the end of Insurgent was true, and that was her famous line, "When that message gets out, it'll be the end." Whatever. What was the whole point in her trying to find that box, open the message, and then just bury it again, which is what I didn't like about the second movie. And then even in this movie, the same thing happened with Four's mother. She said the same thing. She didn't want anyone going over the wall, and basically trying to protect them, which they did. And then they come back and fight off this guy's army and whatever, and ruin his plan and become one city. Like, it just didn't make sense to me. So, if they do, however, happen to make a part 2 to this movie, they need to just call it Allegiant Part 2, because the last rumor I heard about the Part 2 was that it was not going to be called Allegiant Part 2. It was going to be called Ascendant, which didn't make sense to me. But yeah, so for number 5, I'm going to have to go with the Divergent series Allegiant. Number 4. So, for number 4, I thought this movie was... I didn't get the purpose of this movie because it was a continuation to the first one, but I don't remember any storyline about this in the actual animated version of this movie, and that was Alice Through the Looking Glass. Yeah, this movie, I didn't get the purpose of it. Basically the main plot of the story was when Alice was going back in time and through different points where the Red Queen and her sister apparently had issues, and that's why the Red Queen's head was so big. But honestly, though, I didn't get that purpose, because I could have sworn those two were not sisters in the first movie. Which, it was really the White Queen was the main ruler of Wonderland, but the Red Queen was just the one who stole the crown from her and whatever, and the White Queen and her forces were forced into hiding. And honestly, that's what I thought the first movie was about. And the second movie did not make sense to me when it mentioned that those two were actually sisters. And there was this whole thing about the Mad Hatter getting sick for something. I don't know, but apparently it had something to do with his past or whatever that really did made him upset. And I just didn't get this movie. So for number 4, I'm gonna have to go with Alice Through the Looking Glass. Number 3. So for number 3 now, this to not to confuse this over the original, but this movie, I feel like, why did they even make this reboot movie? It was so terrible and didn't tie in at all with the original, and that was Ghostbusters from 2016 with the female leads. Yeah. Why did they do this? Why did they make a reboot to that famous Ghostbusters series? I mean, the first two movies were amazing, and I even heard that there was possibility of a third movie, which, as you can see from my reaction to the teaser trailer for Ghostbusters 3, you can go under my list of videos if I don't leave a link in the description. But I feel like, why did they make this reboot? It didn't do well at all, and like I said, they probably learned from their mistake when they made this reboot and decided to keep going with the Ghostbusters 3 movie and bringing back some of the original cast. And the reason why I say some of the original cast is because I think there was one original member of the original team of Ghostbusters that's dead, and I can't remember which one it is, but it's definitely not Bill Murray, obviously, because he's still alive, and it's definitely not Sigourney Weaver that's dead, because she's still alive. I mean, we saw her in 2009 for Avatar, and we've seen her in a lot of other movies. But anyways, like I said, this female version of Ghostbusters didn't make sense to me at all, and none of the scenes were at all like the originals in the first movie. Like that whole mansion scene in the movie where this one woman was trying to talk to the ghost, and all of a sudden she screams and spits stuff out at her. That was never in that movie. Well, they probably changed the scene where they saw the ghost in the library. That is probably what that scene was based off of. And technically, the first movie did not have the assistant who was always answering the calls and letting the team know that there was trouble, and they didn't actually. That character did not get possessed by a ghost and tried to open a portal to a crazy dimension and set loose a bunch of crazy ghosts, whatever. Like, and also the Puff monster that was in the first movie, that they completely changed that in this movie too. They made it the giant looked like the symbol of the Ghostbusters team, and even if it was the female team. What the heck, people? You should have just stuck with the originals and released a third movie instead of the original. Or not, no, instead of a reboot. So for number 3, I'm going to have to go with Ghostbusters 2016. Number 2. So, like I said, this one, honestly, I know this is a series of movies, or no, a series of books, but the way they made this first movie didn't go at all like how the book did. And that was The Fifth Wave. Yeah, I just didn't get the point of this film. I mean, you start watching it, and they think there's some weird alien race that's taking over the Earth after all this weird stuff, after all these waves of radioactive stuff happens, and by the end of the movie, it suddenly is revealed that the people who were training these kids or whatever to do all these crazy stuff, it turns out they were the aliens all along, and it's like, what the heck? That does not make sense. Whatever, they bring these kids in to train them up to protect themselves, and yet we find out they're only the aliens using them to raise an army of humans. Like, that doesn't make sense. So, yeah, but my number 1 spot on this list is definitely worse than this one. And finally, for my number 1 worst movie of 2016. You knew this was going to be on the list at some point, even though I only had 5 on this list. But this movie, just like I did with my worst movies of 2017, this movie relates to my number one on that list, and this is the Angry Birds movie. Like, I do not understand what was the point of this movie. I mean, they're just ripping off the whole Angry Birds game on your phone and making a story about it, whatever, which didn't match up with the original game at all, or at least some of it definitely did not. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And a lot of the characters that were in the movie weren't even in the game, so it just didn't make any sense to me. But yeah, I gotta say, this movie was not well, and like I said, in my 2017 version of worst movies, my number one on that was the Emoji Movie. It's the same thing I had against that, is why did you do this to things that are on your phone? Like, it doesn't make sense. But yeah, so honestly, number one for my worst year, number one movie that's worst for 2016 has to be the Angry Birds movie. So that was my list for my 5 worst films of 2016. So keep an eye out for ones that I do for best and worst of 2015 and best and worst of 2014. So that's basically all for now in this video, and if you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I will see all you dudes in the next video.